I am Dr. Rajendra, Associate Professor, Department of Zoology, Arts, Science and Commerce College, Indapur. Today we are dealing the lecture for TY BSc Zoology for semester 1. Chapter name is Pila globosa. Genus is the Pila. Specific name is the globosa. Means the scientific name is Pila globosa. Its general name is an apple snail. Why apple snail? Because it looks like globose type, or it is having globose shape like an apple. That is why apple snail it is called. And today we are dealing the mantle cavity and pallial complex, body cavity and locomotion. This figure, what it shows actually, this figure shows shell of the Pila globosa. Shell is there, that this shell is of yellow orange in color, okay, and below that shell what the structures are visualized, you can see first pair of tentacles, smaller one, first pair of tentacles, okay, and in between the first pair of tentacle vertical slit like aperture. खाच दिसते ना तिथं, vertical slit like aperture is nothing but the mouth, okay, and behind the first pair of tentacles longer tentacles are there. We call them as second tentacles. Means first tentacles or first pair of tentacles, we can call it as labial tentacles also. They test the food, that is why labial tentacles. Mouth is there, okay, you got no mouth, vertical slit like aperture, and behind the first pair of tentacles longer tentacles, second pair of tentacles. They have tactile function. Tactile function means sense of touch, sparsha jnana. And behind the second pair of tentacles on omatophore, eyes are there, black colored eyes are present, paired eyes are present, okay. These structures are situated on the head. Means head consists of snout. Snout म्हणजे मुस्कट, डोक्याच्या बाजूला मुस्कटाचा भाग असतो आणि त्या मुस्कटावर हे सगळे स्ट्रक्चर्स आहेत. म्हणजेच काय, हेड consists of snout and that snout has different structures. What? First pair of tentacle, second pair of tentacle, mouth, omatophore, eyes, and below that first pair of tentacle large muscular foot is present. Large muscular foot is present. Means here what has happened, head and foot, they lie at one side. That is why we call it as head foot complex. What it know? Head foot complex. Why this foot and head lie at one side? Already I mentioned you during metamorphosis. Means during the metamorphosis of gastrula and larval stage, what happens actually, that larva, trochophore and veliger larva, it is having the shape as general form. Means head is situated at the anterior side, anus is situated at the posterior side, and that alimentary canal is straight. But here what is happened during torsion, head lie there only, but the foot rotates in 180 degree. म्हणजे 180 कोनामध्ये तो अनसचा भाग वळतो, त्यामुळं तो इंटेस्टाइनचा भाग यू लूप सारखा तयार होतो, यू आकार तयार होतो. अगोदर लार्वामध्ये स्ट्रेट लाईन होते, alimentary कॅनलची सरळ दोरी असल्याप्रमाणे, आणि ती दोरी आपण यू आकारामध्ये घेतली तर काय होईल? दोन्ही टोकं कशी येतील? एकमेकाच्या जवळ येतील. एक टोक सुरुवातीचं जे होतं दॅट वी कॉल इट ॲज माउथ, अँड द अनदर पॉईंट, टर्मिनल पॉईंट, शेवटचा पॉईंट दॅट हॅज बीन रोटेटेड इन 180 डिग्री, दॅट वी कॅन कॉल इट ॲज द ॲनस. म्हणजे हेड आणि ॲनस एका बाजूला आलेला आहे. तर आता हा राईट साईडचा आय दिसतोय ना, त्याच्या अजून राईट साईडला ॲनस असतो. म्हणजे हेड आणि ॲनस एका बाजूला आलेले असतात 180 डिग्री कोनामध्ये वळण घेतल्यानंतर. मीन्स ड्युरिंग मेटामॉर्फोसिस टॉर्शन ऑकर्स इन 180 डिग्री अँड द हेड अँड ॲनस लाय ॲट वन side or one plane. This is the characteristic feature of this organism, and the foot is located at the ventral side. Listen carefully. This foot is located at the ventral side, and below that a head mantle is present. If this head is removed, mantle can be seen. That mantle is located at the dorsal side. Mantle is at dorsal side, foot is at ventral side, and this head part is at anterior side. Anterior म्हणजे पुढची बाजू. जशी आपली डोक्याची बाजू anterior side, पायाची बाजू posterior side आहे, पाठीची बाजू dorsal side, पोटाची बाजू ventral side. But here mantle dorsally situated, foot ventrally situated, and the head anteriorly situated. Yes, these points we have to keep in your mind, okay? And thereafter we are going to see the body cavity and locomotion also. Yes, from the chapter Pila globosa, means an apple snail. In the last lecture we dealt the points, that is the structure of the body and mental. Structure of the body. Listen. In the structure of the body, we had seen in the last lecture the head part, foot part, and visceral mass. These three parts we had seen. Why I am going to repeat these points also? Because to study the mantle cavity and pallial complex, then body cavity, and for locomotion, these points are very important to get understand. That is why I am going to repeat, because these points today I am telling, these are interlinked with each other, and all these points from the starting lecture, means from the first lecture up to the last lecture, these points are interlinked, and you shall have to understand very well. You shall have to study very well before going to the second lecture or next lecture. You can see here the head part. We had seen the first pair of tentacles, and between the first pair of tentacles vertical slit like aperture is present. We call it as the mouth. Mouth is the anterior most, or we call it as proximal end of the alimentary canal. म्हणजे alimentary canalचा सुरुवातीचा भाग, that is mouth. This is the mouth. And mouth, what is the function of mouth? From the mouth region, this organism, it can devour khana. It can devour its food. Which kind of food? It can devour succulent vegetation. Which plants? Vallisneria and Pistia. These plants it devour from the mouth region, and when that food goes into the mouth, at that time chopping or cutting off those leaves or vegetable matter can be done by the radula itself. Later on we shall see what is the radula and other parts, but actually this part is very important. That is to get understand mouth, first pair of tentacles, second pair of tentacles which are tactile in function, and behind that omatophore, and that on the omatophore stalk देठासारखा भाग असतो, ओके, काडीसारखा भाग असतो. On the omatophore stalk eyes are present. This animal can visualize in dim light only. it cannot visualize very well the image, it doesn't get actually. Only the light spots it can determine. Okay, yes. This is regarding the uh, body structure, and uh, because in the body structure we had seen head and the foot also. In this diagram the foot is seen very well. Okay, foot is situated at which side? At the dorsal or ventral? At the ventral side, because at the dorsal side mantle is present. Head is situated at the anterior side. Anterior most part of the body is the head, and foot is situated at the ventral side. Okay, and this foot is the large, highly extensible. Why extensible? During creeping, during locomotion, this part it elongates. हा पसरतो भाग मोठा. That is why it is extensible part, and its shape triangular structured foot is present. Okay, this foot is has pointed apex, and it is directed backwards. Okay, this foot has a flat, broad, smooth and grey colored ventral surface. We call it as shape. Here the foot contains the sole. Foot contains the sole which is applied to the substratum for creeping. And this foot has two parts actually, anterior and posterior. Anterior part is called the propodium and the posterior part is called the metapodium. This propodium and metapodium during the creeping or during locomotion acts for the purpose of creeping. Yes, this foot part, it has inside the pedal glands, and from the pedal glands one sort of secretion can be secreted which forms the slime trail during locomotion, which is this slime trail during locomotion becomes silvery in color. Okay, yes, got it. This foot is used for locomotion and for attachment also, and the shell is there. Okay, we can see the shell, and below that shell mantle is present, and below the mantle visceral mass is present. I already mentioned in Marathi the visceral mass, we call it as atadi paroti. Okay, yes, because in the visceral mass different organs are situated. Digestive system, circulatory system, respiratory system, also the excretory organs, reproductive system, all these systems have been situated or located or lodged inside the shell only. Yes, thereafter we had seen the mantle structure also. Mantle means what? Today we are dealing the mantle. Mantle is also called the pallium. Okay, actually we have skin. Outer exoskeleton of our body is formed of skin. That is why skin comes under exoskeleton, which protects inside organs of our body. We can say the skin also in the apple snail, but actually skin and mantle both have different functions. In our body, skin is exposed to the exterior environment or ambient environment. Okay, but here in Pila, skin is not exposed to the exterior or external environment. Why? Because that part we call it as the mantle, and mantle secretes the shell, and the shell is exposed to the external environment, not the mantle or pallium. Mantle is also called the pallium. This is the main difference or distinguishing character between the skin and mantle. Here the mantle is located below the shell, but mantle or pallium we call it as, it secretes the calcareous shell. means from the secretion of mantle calcareous shell can be formed. This calcium carbonate secreted calcareous shell protects the animal from the surrounding. Yes, but now this mantle has a glandular covering, that is why we call it as the it secretes the calcareous shell. Uh, this mantle has at its anterior side head region. Already we had seen the diagram also. At the anterior side it has the head region. Okay, and appendages. Which appendages on the head region? First pair of tentacles, second pair of tentacles, omatophore and eyes. These are called the head appendages. Why we call it as a head appendages? Because on the head they are situated, that is why head appendages we call them as. Yes, okay. Now edge of the mantle is thick. Edge of the mantle is thick and contains the shell glands which secretes the shell. That we had seen. And on the mantle, supramarginal groove also we studied. These points we studied in the last lecture. Today's lecture agenda is mantle cavity and pallial complex of Pila. What we are going to study today from this mantle cavity and pallial complex, what are the characteristic features, because we didn't had gone through mantle or pallium, these words. First time we are going to deal, means from the point of view the words mantle and pallium.